a detective who decided to lie, frame, cheat, and incarcerate the wrong man. Well, that detective, that officer is now, convicted. Put it at full mass. We've been talking about this since day one at Indisputable. When we see cases like this, where innocent people are prosecuted, convicted, incarcerated, we typically see what? Malfeasance, criminal action by way of cop, prosecutor, and sometimes even the judge. James Pitts on the left, former Philadelphia homicide detective, was found guilty of assaulting an innocent man more than a decade ago to obtain a false murder confession and then lying about his conduct during court proceedings. Pitts was convicted July 16th after jury found him guilty on 2 counts of obstruction and perjury, which led to Obina Onyiah on the right, his conviction following his false confession to a 2010 robbery and murder he never committed. As a result, Mr. Obina spent more than a decade in prison for a crime he never did, while the real killer got away and was never apprehended. With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. So back in 2013, Detective James Pitts gave a false testimony during both a pretrial motion and the jury trial, denying that he ever assaulted the suspect at that time to obtain the confession. The detective's downfall began during an interrogation 3 years earlier when Pitts assaulted Mr. Obina to force him to admit to killing a jewelry store owner named William Glatz, who shot and killed one of the 2 robbers before he died. The second bandit escaped. So the Philadelphia Inquirer reports that the then suspect, who had previous convictions for bank robbery, became a suspect when a former crime partner called the police to implicate him in the Glatz slaying. But even though the officer had no evidence, he coerced the confession despite being fully aware of his innocence, the investigators said. As a result, he was found guilty of killing Glatz and spent 11 years behind bars before his conviction was vacated in 2021 after a review of surveillance video from the robbery scene proved the 6'3" male could not have been the individual who was considerably shorter accomplice who fled the scene. So a year later, grand jury actually indicted Pitts for roughing up the innocent suspect. And so Pitts had previously faced numerous lawsuits and complaints for using physically aggressive interrogation tactics and coercing false confessions. You hear that? That's plural, confessions with an S, leading to multiple murder cases collapsing at trial. That's according to Fox 43 News. Now with the tables turned, Pitt faces his own sentencing in the Court of Common Pleas. This is going to take place in October 4th, with potential to serve as much time behind bars as the person he framed did. So the judge, however, denied a motion to jail Pitts right away, allowing the officer to remain free for now, giving the disgraced cop more than 2 months grace period to make arrangements before he goes away. And typically we see this. We always see the heavy hand of justice be really soft-handed when it comes to those who are supposed to be the protectors of justice inside of the justice system. So you already see this happening. Now, let's go back to the reality of what the narrative presents. A man who had multiple allegations against him, multiple credible lawsuits against him, and also his cases fell apart during trial because prosecutors attempted to prosecute these cases where he created a false confession through assault, but they still let him be a cop. That's the part. You don't get to multiple false confessions by way of this one detective without a system protecting the detective that brings it. And so the people who are supposed to serve and protect are no longer serving and protecting. They are simply serving up innocent black men so that they can look like a hero, while at the same time, the people that are actually committing the crimes, they are free to commit more. That's not helping your community. It defunds the police. It creates a culture of corruption, and it contributes to the us and them mentality that exists between law enforcement and community. Until you, as an industry, as a police industry, decide to clean up this mess from the inside, you will always have individuals like this serving your community the wrong way. Senator Turner, this is obviously horrible, but at least this time, the person who framed the innocent man got some level of conviction. What say you?
Yeah, this is a grandma moment, Doc. You put truth in the river 5 days after lie, truth gon' catch up. Now, unfortunately for the gentleman that was convicted who had to spend 11 years of his life in prison for a crime that he did not commit, he can't get that time back. And I don't want us to lose that. That is not trivial. Right. Doing hard time in prison changes things in your life, physically, psychologically, just the whole 9 yards. He'll never be able to get that back. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, Doctor, you're absolutely right. We could have went all this time and this police officer had never been caught for the misdeeds. And it is especially galling when you have people who have the people's trust, who took an oath to protect and to serve. It is especially galling when they misuse the people's trust. And not only is it bad for that particular officer, it is bad for the entire law enforcement industry across the board. Police officers and other law enforcement officers, they cannot do their jobs without trust from the community. And examples like this just continue to exacerbate the already fragile relationship between law enforcement and the larger community, and especially law enforcement and Black people. No law enforcement officer should want what that officer has done, because it puts them all at peril, and it's unfair to the community, period. Nobody wins on this one, Doc, but I'm glad they got him.
Yeah, that's right. And if more jurisdictions are willing to do this, to roll cops that set people up, violate their rights, you will see less cops being willing to do so.